It's Monday, June 1st, 2026, taking our time in Iran, burning down France, and one illustration of just why it hurts so much to lose Charlie Kirk. Next on the AM Update. President Trump had an interview with Lara Trump, his daughter-in-law. Of course, the topic of Iran came up. President Trump, of course, had that meeting on Friday, supposedly, where he met with his national security advisors. They were going to make a final determination on this apparent deal with Iran. That has come and gone. It's been over 48 hours since that meeting has come and gone. And over the weekend, President Trump told his daughter-in-law this.
So what does a good deal look like for you?
Well, first of all, there's no deal that's good enough because the media will cover it. We're making a great deal. We're going to make it a great deal. Or we'll just go back and finish it off militarily. But this would go faster. It's probably better on a humane standpoint. There's something nice about it also. You know, you save a lot of lives. Whether it's the other side or not, you save a lot of lives. But we're close to a very good deal. And if we can make it good, otherwise we just start up with the Department of War, as we call it. And it's been very successful. You saw Venezuela. It was a one-day win, and this is really a win already. We've defeated their military, essentially defeated their military. I would rather get a deal because we can open the strait immediately upon signing. The one guarantee that I have to have is that there will be no nuclear weapons. They've agreed to that. And it was very interesting. They originally said, we will not develop a nuclear weapon. I said, well, what happens if you buy a nuclear weapon? So now it says we will not develop or in any way purchase a military weapon.
So there's President Trump giving a little bit of a glimpse inside the negotiations with Iran or the IRGC, whoever the negotiations are taking place with, saying that the terms of their nuclear weapons acquisition program have changed. Now, apparently, the deal that's on the table is that Iran has agreed they will not even try to buy a nuclear weapon. So that is interesting. Of course, as I said, that meeting that President Trump was going to make a final determination on a deal, that happened on Friday. That came and went with no announcement quite yet. President Trump's Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, also talking about Iran over the weekend, also asked again, defining what a victory actually looks like.
Well, son.
Now, a lot of people have asked me recently, will President Trump finish the job?
Well, again, what does finish the job mean? Because if finish the job means making sure that Strait of Hormuz is open, that we get the highly enriched uranium, and that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, that is finishing the job.
Okay.
So there's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who has been front and center on a lot of these conversations, as it's his job from the economic side and the financial side to apply pressure on Iran. He seems to think that just reopening the Strait of Hormuz and making sure that Iran doesn't have access to the highly enriched uranium, that is the definition of finishing the job. Moving on, in New Jersey over the weekend. That's the sound in part of Antifa orcs attacking police on horses. Now, the Antifa were not on horses. The police were on horses. They were part of crowd control measures as riots and protests continue to go down at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Facility in Newark, New Jersey. Newark Mayor Ras Baraka announced a mandatory curfew would be imposed within a half-mile radius of the Delaney Hall ICE detention facility following many days now of protests and unrest. He said, quote, due to the escalating situation at Delaney Hall and the increasing need for police intervention, immediate action is required to protect public safety. So it seems like the mayor, at least in Newark, is trying to get on the ball, even though this has been days now of these protests at this Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Newark. It's been the focus of numerous left-wing politicians, left-wing commentators showing up to this Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center and just making a scene. That's kind of their plan. At least that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. Just make a scene. That's the story. Boy, Democrats in Maine have more problems on their hand. The wife of Graham Platner, the presumptive Democratic nominee for Senate in Maine, said she is really angry about reports that she had previously told her husband's campaign that he had exchanged sexually explicit texts with other women. Platner's wife, Amy Gertner, said, quote, "It makes me really angry and disappointed, and I find it really shameful. There's a group of media outlets and people who are willing to spread gossip instead of talking about the real issues that Graham is running on." Gertner's remarks came after the New York Times and Wall Street Journal reported that Gertner, the wife of Graham Platner, had told Platner's campaign about the sexually explicit texts last year near the start of his Senate bid. Her disclosure came during a conversation with campaign officials about potential opposition research into Platner. The two outlets reported, with the Times citing former senior official in Platner's campaign. Of course, the pair married in 2023. Have been open about their infertility issues, including sharing they traveled to Norway for IVF treatment earlier this year. Platner's campaign, of course, faced the revelation so far, apologizing for old Reddit posts where he called, I think, Medal of Honor recipients dumb mother bleepers. Also had that Nazi tattoo that he covered up back in October of last year. Just issue after issue was also revealed over the weekend that there is an active profile on some really risque app that's like has a reputation for being very hotspot for predators that is associated with him. He had an active account on that. That's alleged. That's another allegation that's floating out there. But it seems like Maine Democrats might have an escape hatch because there is actually provisions. There are provisions in Maine election law that if Platner ends up winning his primary in June, and if he drops out after that, party officials can actually choose a new nominee for the Democrats. So this has been, again, a focused race. Much attention has been put upon this race in Maine, and it just keeps getting zanier and crazier and crazier. Senator Cory Booker is one of a growing list of Democrats calling Platner's behavior and revelations very concerning.
Let me ask you, do you have concerns with the weight of all these controversies that it may jeopardize Democratic hopes to get that Senate seat in Maine?
Yeah, I have concerns. That guy has questions to answer, and that's what campaigns are for.
Let me ask.
Senator Cory Booker, referring to Graham Platner as that guy, has questions to answer. Let's go to this up next. Jill Biden, more of her interview with CBS News, was asked very directly a pretty simple question we already knew the answer to.
Did you ever see signs that he was falling into cognitive decline?
No.
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 Truly?
No.
What you can't see there, and I'm not going to put it on video because it's copyright material, and once you add video, that kind of gets into more iffy territory. What you can't see there, obviously, listening to that, is Jill Biden, the wife of Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden. She's asked point blank, did you see any signs of cognitive decline? And she answers over and over again, no, no, no. What you can't see there, following her last no, is a coy little smile, a coy little smirk. Just absolutely sociopathic behavior. She gives a little smirk. This is her husband, whom she said late last week, in a clip that came out late last week, she said during that infamous debate, she thought Joe Biden was having a stroke. I do on some level. Joe Biden is not a good guy. He's not a good dude. He's not. And he hasn't been for a long time. He's got a reputation going back many, many years of not being a great dude. Just completely a political animal. But there's part of me, the human part of me, that does feel sad for him. What should be a part of his life where he was on the decline. Enjoy as much as you can the family that you have, the grandkids that you have. Instead, you are surrounded by kind of the political animal machine that you built, just abusing you. And that part of me that's still kind of human, the part of me that is human, does feel bad for Joe Biden on some level because he's surrounded by some really sick people. And yeah, maybe that's Maybe that's kind of God's judgment on the rest of his life, that he ends this way. But that's just sick stuff. When we come back, a few stories. Burning down France after one of their teams got a big victory in soccer. Also, the Washington Nationals, the baseball franchise, is apologizing, and why it really hurts, actually hurts, to lose Charlie Kirk in a way that maybe most people don't understand. It's coming up next. The sounds on the streets of various cities in France. A total of 219 people have been injured in clashes between football fans and police across France after Paris Saint-Germain won the Champions League final against Arsenal. 8 were in serious condition, Interior Minister Laurent Nunez said. Thousands of officers were deployed to curb unrest that disrupted bus, train, and rail services in the capital, Paris. 57 of them were injured. Nunez said 780 people have been arrested over the violence, with more than 450 in custody. A person was found dead after an accident on Paris's Ring Road, which rioters tried to block overnight. Some 6,000 police have been mobilized for Sunday's victory parade, which went down yesterday. Scenes around the site of the Eiffel Tower on Sunday appeared jubilant and peaceful as the parade got underway at around 6 p.m. local time, with fans lining the street to cheer PSG players and their staff. The celebration included touring several well-known landmarks around the French capital. Nearly 800, I believe that was the number, nearly 800 people arrested. These scenes coming out of France. After what should be a jubilant, happy, peaceful celebration, it turned into utter chaos. Burning out cars. Just scenes of rampant vandalism because their team won. And it was an excuse to just go nuts and go crazy. That's just feral human behavior. How about this? The Washington Nationals are in full damage control after an undercover journalist with the O'Keefe Media Group caught now former Director of Community Relations Sean Hudson claiming to be religiously discriminating against a Catholic starting pitcher. Their pitcher's name is Trevor Williams. On Friday, news broke that the team had fired Hudson. Later that evening, during a pregame coverage of the Nationals versus Padres game, which the Padres later won, President of Business Operations Jason Sinaraja addressed the controversy. Listen to this.
We do not track people's Google search history. We do not hide players from social media. Even just last week, we featured several players, including Trevor Williams, actually, on Instagram as part of their visit to the Museum of the Bible. All that being said, we're horrified by the comments that were made on the video. The comments don't reflect us as an organization, our values, and who we are. We took action right away, and the individual is no longer employed by the team. I think I want to also take a minute and apologize to Trevor Williams, who's been brought into this. We feel awful that he's been dragged into this situation, and hope that this isn't a distraction as he gets ready to get back on the field, which we're excited to have him back on. Trevor's a valued member of the organization. We've been proud to support him both on and off the field, including, recognizing him last year as our Roberto Clemente Award honoree. So I think it's important our fans understand that and hear from me directly on this one. Again, I think it's important our fans, that watch this broadcast, fans that follow this team, know our actions day in and day out, year after year. We champion our players, what's important to them. We stand by them. Baseball's a great unifier that brings everybody together regardless of religion or anything like that. So, we're going to continue to make this ballpark a welcoming place. It's what we strive to do. And again, apologies to anything about that's been offended by this, but that wasn't, this is not indicative of how we are as an organization.
That is the Washington Nationals President of Baseball Operations, Jason Sinaraja, apologizing on national TV, at least on the Washington Nationals TV network, to the fans who heard one of their social media or one of their operations, kind of the digital operations worker, being caught on a sting by O'Keefe Media Group, making all sorts of claims about how the Nationals, the Washington Nationals, view religion, particularly Christianity, particularly Catholicism, making a lot of disparaging remarks about Catholicism and saying that the Nationals don't want anything to do with that. So the Washington Nationals, again, O'Keefe Media Group, they've got another scalp here. They fired that individual and are now in full damage control mode. But good on them, though, for actually apologizing and taking action to remove this staffer who did a lot of damage to that organization over the last week and a half or so. Finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. Want to take you inside a little bit, as much as I can. I know more than the average bear, given what I do for the day job. I'm not going to give away anything that's necessarily not known publicly, though. And I want to take you inside what's going on in my backyard in the Iowa gubernatorial primary on the Republican side. This state has gone hard red, the state of Iowa. When I was growing up, it was at best a purple state. I remember it being a purple state. And now, thanks to a lot of hard work from a lot of key activists and a lot of dedication from a lot of key activists and a lot of hard work and perseverance, the state has gone just super majorities in both at the state level in both the House and the Senate. Our entire congressional delegation is Republican. Our congressional delegation, I wouldn't say are any level of firebrand conservatives, but they're all Republicans, all 6 of them. So that's kind of a picture of what Iowa is. It is a hard right state. Went for Donald Trump all 3 times. Now, it was also the state in 2016 that did not vote for Donald Trump in the caucuses, but has since, resoundingly. It's been a stronghold of Republican politics and MAGA for the last decade. Our governor, Kim Reynolds, who has been really, really good, who we didn't think was going to be really, really good when she started running, but had some sort of spiritual awakening in her life and has been an extraordinary governor for us. She shocked the world and really caught people off guard and not ready when she announced, I believe it was early last year, March or April, spring of last year, she's not going to seek re-election this year. And so there's no obvious heir apparent, unfortunately, that Kim Reynolds had been preparing. So that left the entire political operation, both right-wing, Republican, conservative politicians or political organizations, left everyone in a lurch. But some candidates eventually emerged. One of them is Congressman Randy Feenstra. A couple others with some legislative at the state level experience: Eddie Andrews, Brad Sherman, Adam Steen, which is basically the chief operating officer of the state of Iowa. So a very smart guy, very capable, knows government inside and out, very right-wing, good man. He threw his hat into the ring. Somebody who I had not heard of before, but I got to see in person and hear in person during the first gubernatorial debate, which, by the way, Randy Feenstra, more on him in a little bit, did not attend. Zach Lane. He threw his hat into the ring as well. He's a farmer, has a lot of money, I think maybe from his in-law side. It's not clear. I think he's a businessman as well. Threw his hat into the ring. So we've got all of these candidates. We've got how many did I list off there? 5 total. 4 that have actually debated one another. That would be Eddie Andrews, state legislator, Brad Sherman, I think former state legislator, Adam Steen, and Zach Lane. Congressman Randy Feenstra, if you don't, not even looking at the issues, which are important, and probably the most important thing, is just not a good candidate. If you watch him and his affect, the way he conducts himself, the way he carries himself when he's actually doing that, it does not scream confidence. It does not scream, I am a bold leader. It doesn't really scream leadership at all. He's extraordinarily awkward. He is just kind of gives off a weird vibe. And again, I'm just talking about appearances and outward appearances. I'm talking about the packaging of a candidate. He's just not a good candidate. And then you throw in, he's been trying to run the Joe Biden strategy basement campaign, No one in the state, none of the activist level in the state likes Randy Feenstra. He's got maybe a couple of, maybe 2, 3 handful of good votes in Congress. Other than that, it's not like, hey, look at him leading on this issue. Look at him leading and, sticking his neck out on this charge. He's just kind of blah. Just a blah candidate. Just not inspiring at all. He's been running the Joe Biden basement campaign strategy. He is not debated. He rarely goes out and actually takes questions from people. I think the one time that he did, it was a disaster for him. No one likes him. No one wants him in this state. But he's got a lot of money. The guy that I've been supporting, Adam Steen, he's first-time candidate for elected office. He's a really good man. And I don't think he has much money. If he does, he's saving it for later, maybe after the primary, but it's been really difficult for whatever reason. I think getting him a lot of traction building and momentum building. Zach Lane, the businessman, has a lot of momentum and has a lot of money, and he's been spending it. It's very obvious to see. And a poll came out on Friday showing that Zach Lane was actually leading the field of candidates. Leading Randy Feenstra. This came out on Friday morning. And I looked at the poll, and it looks like a really good poll, really quality poll. And it looked like maybe for a fleeting instance, it looked like maybe we would not be cursed with Randy Feenstra as our Republican nominee for governor in the state of Iowa. And it looked that way for about 2 hours before President Trump, out of nowhere, announced he's endorsing Randy Feenstra. Now, Congressman Feenstra, has on at least a couple of occasions asked for President Trump's endorsement. I know this. And has been rebuffed. Obviously has been rebuffed because President Trump has not given it to Randy Feenstra. The president came out, I think, in February to visit Iowa, which is very kind of him to do. Feenstra was with him on Air Force One. It was widely publicized on that trip. I have to think, Feenstra was running for governor there. I have to think that he asked for President Trump's endorsement then, and no endorsement ever came. And so here we are, fewer than 100 hours away from the Iowa GOP gubernatorial primary. We're kind of thinking, hey, looks like President Trump hasn't endorsed to this point. Looks like he's not going to. Favorable poll for Zach Lane comes out, and less than 2 hours later, Trump endorses Randy Feenstra. But that's just the beginning. After it was announced that Trump was endorsing Randy Feenstra, to everyone's surprise, although it shouldn't be a surprise, TP Action, Turning Point Action, that's kind of the political arm of Turning Point USA, they came out and they endorsed Zach Lane for governor. So now you've got Turning Point Action versus the White House in Iowa for the Iowa governorship. This is a state, as I said, that is red, beet red now. And this process has brought us to this point where we've got probably the largest political organizing force that Charlie Kirk built himself. We've got this large organizing political force butting heads with the White House for Iowa governor. If only there were like a point person who could kind of at least communicate with all sides of this, kind of get where everybody is, understand where everybody is, understand people in Iowa's concerns about Randy Feenstra. By the way, when Trump endorsed Randy Feenstra, the odds that are pretending to be moderate, but really is a left-wing Democrat presumptive nominee here in Iowa, Rob Sand. When President Trump endorsed Feenstra, Rob Sand, the Democrats' odds of winning the governorship on betting markets went up. By the way, that tells you what kind of a candidate Randy Feenstra is. But if only there was some point person that could, be kind of a liaison between vested interests in Iowa, those concerned about Randy Feenstra, maybe even Feenstra's camp himself and the White House, and maybe somebody who had a big political organization, an organizing force. If only there was somebody who could act as a liaison, so that at the very least, if we were going to end up in the scenario where President Trump endorses a terrible, terrible congressman, Randy Feenstra, at least there was somebody that was kind of a go-between on all of these sides that can kind of smooth things over and it just articulate why we are where we are, why President Trump is endorsing Randy Feenstra. If only that person existed. That person did exist. And spiritually, I'm not talking spiritually, but his name was Charlie Kirk. This is a side that most people don't think about. When we say that losing Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was such a massive loss, this is a side that most people don't think about. And it only really came out after he was murdered that he did a lot of things behind the scene like this. We wouldn't be in a scenario where his organization, probably because, and I'm not blaming Turning Point Action at all, but obviously I don't think there was any communication between the White House and Turning Point. And so now they're going against each other. This wouldn't have happened. Maybe we would have gotten to the point where Trump still endorsed Feenstra, but we're not blowing our wads against each other. There would have been somebody to kind of communicate to activists in Iowa or key players in Iowa, hey, this is why the White House is doing what they're doing. Maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe you don't agree with it, but that's why it's happening. There's none of that now. I think people don't understand. Yes, Charlie Kirk did a show, did a podcast. Yes, Charlie Kirk went to all of these college campuses. But I would wager, given what I have learned and what's public, you can find out for yourself if you research publicly, most of his job was behind the scenes. One good example of that, I don't think we really fully understood until he was murdered, is the reason why we probably won the last election is the infusion of the Make America Healthy Again vote. And the deal that was brokered to bring RFK Jr. aboard the Trump campaign in exchange for a spot at HHS, that was brokered by Charlie Kirk. It hurts. Just want to give you a very practical application and illustration of why losing him hurts so much. Right from my own backyard. Sorry to end it on a downer on a Monday. Hope you have a good one. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.